My mother-in-law, a powerful and cruel woman, did not hesitate to hire a hitman to have me killed, just so her son could divorce me without complication. But she could never have imagined that I would turn her own scheme against her, faking my death only to return and trap her with the very deranged butcher she had hired. And when my spineless husband opened that fateful door, the horrifying scene within made his face drain of all color as he collapsed in shock. How did this bitter and elaborate revenge unfold in all its detail? You are invited to listen right now. I still remember that fateful night as if it were yesterday. A late-season New York storm raged outside, lashing rain against the panoramic windows of the mansion, creating mournful, desperate sounds as if weeping for my fate. Inside, the atmosphere was even colder and more suffocating than the storm. I stood there, my hands clutching the white apron I wore, my head bowed, not daring to look at anyone. In front of me, a lavish dinner spread with expensive dishes I had spent all afternoon preparing was still steaming, yet no one had touched their food. Seated around the polished mahogany dining table were unfamiliar but powerful faces. They were important business partners of my husband, Kevin, and at the head of the table sat not my husband, but my mother-in-law, Eleanor. Her face was meticulously made up, her hair styled in a sophisticated chignon, but her eyes, sharp as daggers, were fixed on me, filled with an undisguised contempt and fury. The dreadful silence was shattered by a piercing crash. Eleanor had hurled her crystal glass to the floor. Red wine splashed everywhere, staining the priceless Persian rug the color of blood and staining my last shred of endurance with it. She slammed her hands on the table and rose, her finger, laden with diamond rings, pointing straight at my face. Her voice was a shrill screech, like metal scraping against glass. "Amelia, just look at yourself. Do you have any idea how important this dinner is? Do you know who these guests are? And yet you dare to present yourself to our guests looking like some country bumpkin? The dress you are wearing is not even fit to be my dish rag. Are you trying to embarrass this family? To sabotage my son's career?" I froze, looking down at the simple light blue sheath dress I was wearing. It was the nicest, most presentable outfit I owned. I had thought it was formal enough to meet my husband's partners, but in Eleanor's eyes, it was an insult. I stammered, my voice trembling. "Mother, I'm sorry. I didn't know." "Didn't know?" Eleanor sneered, a smile so cold it was unnerving. "What does a provincial nobody like you know about anything? You are only good for slaving away in the kitchen, cooking your simple, rustic meals. I have told Kevin countless times, marrying you would only hold him back. Look, everyone, take a good look. This is my daughter-in-law. Does she look worthy of my son?" All eyes in the room turned to me. Some were curious, some were pitying, and some were openly mocking. I felt my face flush, my ears ringing. I was like a criminal being publicly tried. I glanced at my husband. Kevin was sitting there, his face pale, his head bowed, his hands clenched tightly under the table. He did not dare to look at me, nor at his mother. He only managed to mumble a weak phrase. "Mom, that is enough. We have guests." "So what if there are guests?" Eleanor turned to berate her son. "It is precisely because we have guests that I must speak. To let everyone see your foolish choice. Look at your wife, then look at yourself. A young executive with a brilliant future, and you go and marry an orphan girl. No family connections, no education, completely useless to your career, just a freeloader. You are a disgrace to this family." Her words were like knives, stabbing directly into my heart. I bit my lip so hard it bled to prevent myself from crying out. The physical pain was nothing compared to the wound in my soul. She said I had no education? I graduated summa cum laude from a prestigious university. She said I was useless to Kevin's career? The entire business plan that helped his company survive the crisis, the breakthrough marketing ideas that helped him secure major contracts, all of them were the result of my sleepless nights, but I never took credit. I silently remained in the background, a shadow content with her husband's success. I had naively believed that as long as he was successful, as long as our family was happy, my sacrifice was worth it. But I was wrong. In my mother-in-law's eyes, I would forever be nothing more than a country girl. And my husband, the man I loved and supported with all my heart, now sat in silence like a coward, letting his wife be humiliated. The party's atmosphere was completely ruined. The guests, feeling awkward, stood up, made their excuses, and left one by one. The vast living room was left with just the three of us and a silence as heavy as a tombstone. When the door closed behind the last guest, Kevin finally dared to lift his head. He looked not at me, but at his mother, his voice filled with reproach, yet also fear. "Mom, why would you do that? Those were my most important partners. How am I supposed to face them now?" "Far from being remorseful," Eleanor snapped back. "Face them? What face do you have left? It was your wife who embarrassed you. Did you see Mr. Davenport's expression when he left? Do you know how he looked at your wife? With contempt. What will he think of an executive who cannot even manage his own wife? Do you think he would dare to invest capital in someone with such poor judgment?" Kevin was speechless. He turned to look at me. His eyes held no defense for me, only anger and blame. "Amelia, you see, this is all your fault. I told you to prepare yourself properly. How could you dress like that?" I was stunned. So in his eyes, the fault was not with his mother, who had caused the entire scene, but with me, with my dress. I let out a laugh, a bitter laugh filled with tears. What is wrong with how I dress? What did I do wrong? I was just being myself. Or would you prefer I drape myself in expensive designer labels and wear a mask of makeup like those women out there? "You still dare to argue?" Kevin shouted, pointing his finger at my face. "Look at yourself. Can you not see the world of difference between you and my mother? You are not worthy of being a part of this family. That is enough." Eleanor's sharp voice cut Kevin off. She walked over to me, leaned close to my ear, and whispered in a voice as cold as ice, meant only for me to hear. "You listen to me carefully. I am giving you 3 days. Write the divorce papers yourself and get out of this house. If you do not, then do not blame me for being cruel." With that, she turned and walked upstairs, with the air of a victor. She left me and Kevin standing there. Kevin looked at me for a moment, a flicker of what might have been guilt in his eyes, but it was quickly extinguished by his cowardice. He sighed, then silently retreated to his study, slamming the door shut as if to escape it all. I was left alone in the cold living room, amidst the now cold dinner and the shards of the crystal glass, just like the shattered pieces of my heart. That night, I could not sleep. I sat curled up on the sofa in the living room, hugging my knees, tears falling silently. I could not believe that the marriage I had tried so hard to build over the past 3 years could end so cruelly. I loved Kevin, loved him so much, but was that love enough to hold on to a man who no longer wanted to be by my side, a man who always put his mother before his wife? Around 2 a.m, as I was lost in my thoughts, I heard the door to my mother-in-law's room creak open. I startled, quickly wiped my tears, and held my breath to listen. I heard her light footsteps descending the stairs and stopping in the living room. She probably thought I was asleep in my room. I peeked through a gap in the armchair and saw Eleanor standing by the window, dialing a strange number on her phone. She raised the phone to her ear, her voice a whisper, but in the dead of night, I could hear every single word clearly. "Hello. Is this Butch? This is Eleanor. That job I mentioned before, it is time to proceed. Just follow the plan exactly. Stage a car accident, make sure it looks real, and most importantly, clean up everything neatly. Leave no trace behind. Money is no object." My heart stopped. Accident, clean up neatly, no trace. Those words were like sharp needles piercing my brain. She did not just want me to divorce him, she wanted me to disappear from this world forever. A chill ran down my spine. I began to tremble uncontrollably, not from the cold, but from sheer, abject terror. The woman I had called mother for 3 years was the very person plotting to kill me. If you are also on the edge of your seat, wanting to know how the mother-in-law's cruel plan will unfold and how the daughter-in-law's tables-turning revenge will spectacularly play out, then do not forget to subscribe to the channel, turn on notifications, like, and leave a comment to share your thoughts. Eleanor's midnight phone call was like a death sentence hanging over my head. 3 days. I had only 3 days to decide my fate, but in reality, what choice did I have? She was not giving me a choice. She was issuing a command. This magnificent mansion, which I had once naively called home, had now become an invisible prison, and the warden was none other than my mother-in-law. I dragged my heavy feet back to the bedroom. My body was exhausted, but my mind was stretched taut like a violin string. I did not dare to cry, did not dare to show any weakness. I knew that in this house, every emotion of mine was being monitored. Any tear would be seen as feeble resistance, and it would only give Eleanor more satisfaction. I closed the bedroom door, locked it, and leaned my back against the cold wood, slowly sliding down to the floor. Only in this small, private space did I allow fear and despair to engulf me. Kill me. Those two words echoed in my mind, cold and ruthless. What had I done wrong? I had tried to be a good wife, a dutiful daughter-in-law. I gave up my career, my friends, my very self, to devote my life to this family. And what did I get in return? My husband's betrayal, my mother-in-law's humiliation, and now a cold-blooded murder plot. I looked around the luxurious bedroom, once the sanctuary for Kevin and me. I had chosen every item in this room, from the cream-colored curtains and the soft sheepskin rug to the wedding photos hanging proudly on the wall. In the pictures, we were smiling so happily. Kevin held me tightly, his eyes looking at me with such affection. Was that smile, that look, all a lie? Or had his love for me truly died, buried under ambition and cowardice? I remembered the early days of our marriage. Kevin had been a very good husband. He used to come home early, help me with dinner, and on weekends, we would go to the movies or for walks. He said he loved my simplicity, my pure soul. He said he was lucky to have married me. Were those sweet words, those caring gestures, just part of an elaborate play to deceive me? But as his company grew, as he was promoted and praised by many, he changed. He started coming home later, the number of social gatherings increasing. He began to criticize me for being unsophisticated, for not knowing how to dress, for being unhelpful in his networking efforts. And his mother, Eleanor, was like a toxic catalyst, constantly adding fuel to the fire. She found ways to drive us apart. She criticized every dish I cooked, scrutinized every outfit I wore. She planted poisonous thoughts in Kevin's mind, that I was a burden, an obstacle on his path to success. Son, you must understand. For a man to achieve greatness, he needs a wife who is a solid support system, who knows how to deal with people, who has the family connections to back him up. Your wife is a good person, but her goodness does nothing for you. She belongs to a quiet life back in her small town. I had heard such words from Eleanor countless times. At first, Kevin would defend me. He would say, "Mom, do not say that." I love her for who she is. But like water dripping on a stone, Eleanor's words were a poison that slowly seeped into his mind. He began to believe his mother was right. He started to look at me differently, with eyes full of weariness and disappointment. And tonight was the climax. The play had to end. They did not need me anymore. They wanted to discard me like an old, useless object. But a simple divorce was not enough. They were afraid I would cling on, afraid I would tarnish Kevin's reputation, so they chose the cruelest method, to send me to my grave. I sat there in the darkness, a feeling of loneliness and helplessness overwhelming me. What could I do? Call the police? I had no proof. Would anyone believe my words? Or would they think I was insane, trying to frame my mother-in-law to save my marriage? In this society, those with money and power always hold the truth in their hands. And I, a girl with no connections, no money, was just a tiny, fragile speck of dust. I drifted in my thoughts until dawn approached. I dozed off on the cold floor, in a fitful sleep filled with nightmares. The next morning, I tried to act as if nothing had happened. I still woke up early to prepare breakfast for Kevin. He emerged from his study, his face gaunt from lack of sleep, his eyes dark-rimmed. He looked at me, his gaze slightly avoidant. Perhaps he still felt guilty about last night, but that guilt was too small compared to his cowardice. Are you okay?" he asked hesitantly. I placed a plate of sunny-side-up eggs on the table, looked up at him, and forced a smile. I am fine. I think I was just tired yesterday, which made the atmosphere so tense. I am sorry. Kevin let out a sigh of relief. He was always like that, always wanting to avoid the problem. My apology gave him the perfect excuse not to face the truth. Good. It is good that you are okay, he said, then sat down and ate his breakfast hastily. I have an important meeting today. I will probably be home late. I watched him in silence, a bitter feeling rising within me. He was still living his life, still pursuing his career, completely unaware that his mother was planning to murder his wife. Or perhaps he knew and chose to ignore it. The thought sent a shiver down my spine. Throughout the day, Eleanor did not appear. She hid herself in her room, perhaps to avoid me, or perhaps to continue perfecting her wicked plan. I was home alone, but it felt as if 1,000 invisible eyes were watching my every move. I tried to clean the house, water the plants, do anything to keep my mind occupied, but fear hung over me like a dark, heavy cloud. In the afternoon, while I was cleaning the living room, I heard the phone ring in Eleanor's room. Normally, I would not have paid any attention, but today, a dark premonition urged me on. I tiptoed upstairs and pressed my ear against her door. Eleanor's voice came through, quiet but clear enough for me to hear. "How is it, Butch? Is everything ready?" "Good. Remember, tomorrow at 9 a.m. sharp, the girl will be going to the market on Astoria Street. Just have the truck drive recklessly and hit her straight on. Remember to hit her from behind to make it look like a typical traffic accident. Once the job is done, you will receive the payment through the usual account." My whole body froze. So, tomorrow was my judgment day. The slaughterhouse had been set up, and I was the trembling lamb waiting to be butchered. Her plan was so detailed, so cruel. She even knew my daily routine of going to the market. She gave me no way out, but there was one thing she had miscalculated. This lamb, however weak, would not go quietly to its death. When cornered, even a lamb will fight back. A crazy but singular idea flashed through my mind. She wanted me dead? Fine. I would die for her to see. But my death would be the beginning of her downfall. And the butcher she hired, was he truly a cold-blooded monster, or was there another secret hidden behind that facade? The name Butch and the image of a truck swirled in my mind like a recurring nightmare. That night, I barely slept a wink. Every small noise in the house, the wind whistling through the cracks, the sound of a branch scraping against the roof made me jump. I felt like prey being stalked, and the predator was lurking somewhere in the darkness, waiting for the right moment to pounce. I had to save myself. I could not just sit here and wait for death. But what could I do? Run away? Where could I go? Eleanor was a woman with money and connections. Even if I fled to the ends of the earth, she would find me, and then my death would likely be even more gruesome. Calling the police, as I had considered, was useless without evidence. It would be my word against hers. They would not believe me. I shot up from the bed and began pacing the room like a caged animal. My mind was racing, desperately searching for an escape route. And then, in my utter despair, a faint image from the past flickered into my mind. It was the image of a skinny, dark-skinned boy, about 10 years old, huddled in a corner of my family's yard back home. His clothes were torn, his face was smudged with dirt, and his large, round eyes were red from crying. It was a freezing winter afternoon, and the boy had collapsed in front of our house from hunger and cold. My parents, who were kind-hearted farmers, brought him inside, fed him, and gave him warm clothes. The boy's name was Butch. He was an orphan who had been living on the streets. After that day, my parents let him stay, treating him like an adopted son. He lived with my family for nearly 2 years, helping my parents with farm work. He was very well-behaved, hard-working, and especially fond of me. He always called me Amy and followed me around everywhere like a little protector. But then one day, he suddenly disappeared without a word of goodbye. My parents searched everywhere for him but found no trace. Everyone assumed he had run off with a bad crowd or found a better place to live. That memory had faded over the years, but the name Butch was still etched in my mind. Could it be? Could the hitman Eleanor hired be the same Butch from all those years ago? It was an unbelievable coincidence. But in this situation, it was my only glimmer of hope. If it was really him, would he still remember me? Would the kindness my family showed him be enough to make him stop? Or had years of fending for himself in the world turned him into a different person, a cold-blooded killer who would do anything for money? I did not know, but I had to try. I had no other choice. The next morning, I went about my routine as usual. I woke up early, prepared breakfast, and then grabbed my basket to go to the market. My heart was pounding in my chest. I knew that every step I took out of this door was a step closer to death, but I could not turn back. I deliberately walked slowly, my eyes scanning my surroundings. The Astoria street market was bustling in the morning with sellers and shoppers. I went to the vegetable section, pretending to choose produce, but my eyes were constantly darting around, searching for a truck, searching for a familiar face. And then I saw it. An old, beat-up truck, its body covered in mud, was parked at the end of the street, hidden among the delivery vans. A man was sitting in the driver's seat. He wore a baseball cap pulled down low, obscuring most of his face, and a cigarette dangled from his lips. He was looking in my direction, a cold, emotionless gaze. My heart skipped a beat. Even though I could not see his face clearly, I had a strong feeling it was him. Butch. I tried to remain calm and continued deeper into the market, weaving through the crowd. I had to find a way to approach him, to talk to him before he could act. But how? If I got too close, he might strike immediately. I walked around the market, my mind working at full speed. Then, an idea struck me. I went to a fruit stand and bought a large bag of oranges. Then, I headed towards the truck, but not directly. I circled around to the back. I deliberately walked close to the curb, where there was a puddle of dirty water. As I passed the rear of the truck, I pretended to slip and fell sprawling to the ground. The bag of oranges flew from my hand, the bright fruit scattering everywhere. "Ow!" I cried out in pain. The fall was hard, and my elbow was scraped and bleeding, but I did not care. My goal was achieved. My cry for help had attracted the attention of the people around me, including the man in the truck. He opened the truck door and got out. He approached me, his figure tall and imposing. He still wore the baseball cap, but as he got closer, I could see his face more clearly. It was a chiseled face, weathered by the elements, and there was a long scar on his left cheek. His eyes still held a coldness, but for a split second, I saw a flicker of surprise, a hint of confusion. "Are you okay, ma'am?" he asked, his voice low and raspy. I looked up and straight into his eyes. I did not answer his question. I called his name, a name I had not spoken in over a decade. "Butch? Is that you? Butch?" The man froze. His muscular body went rigid. The cigarette fell from his lips. His eyes widened in utter disbelief. He stared at me, as if trying to recognize the little girl from his past in the woman before him. I knew I had guessed right. He was the Butch I was looking for. But his next reaction would decide everything. Would he acknowledge me and stop, or would he deny everything and carry out Eleanor's plan? My entire world seemed to pause in that moment, waiting for his answer. Was the fragile bond of the past strong enough to overcome the ruthless power of money? Time seemed to stretch into an eternity. I remained on the ground, looking up at the man who stood frozen before me. The world around us seemed to fade into silence. The noise of the market, the chatter of vendors and shoppers, all receded into the background, leaving just the two of us, facing each other on the precipice between life and death, past and present. A few kind passers-by had stopped, intending to help me up, but Butch's cold glare made them hesitate and then quietly walk away. His weathered face twitched slightly, his lips parted as if he wanted to say something, but no words came out. The shock in his eyes was gradually replaced by a complex, indescribable emotion, a mix of doubt, confusion, and something that looked like pain. He took a step back, turning his face away as if to avoid my gaze. "You have the wrong person," he said, his voice raspy. He turned to walk back to his truck. No! I cried out, my voice cracking with desperation. I could not let him go. If he left now, all my hope would be lost. I gritted my teeth and pushed myself up, ignoring the sharp pain in my ankle from the fall. I grabbed his arm, an arm as solid as steel. I am not mistaken. It is me, Amy. Your Amy. Have you forgotten? That winter, if it were not for my parents, you would have frozen to death on the street. Have you forgotten the meals, the warm clothes my mother gave you? Every word I spoke was like a needle pricking at his dormant memories. I saw his shoulders tremble. He did not turn around, but he did not shake my hand off either. I knew he was wavering. Butch, I continued, my voice softening, filled with a choked sob. Where have you been all these years? My parents and I looked everywhere for you. We were so worried. Why are you here? Why are you doing this kind of work? How much did that woman pay you to kill me? My final question was like a sledgehammer, shattering his silence. He jerked around, startled. This time, he did not look away. He looked directly into my eyes. In those deep, dark eyes, I no longer saw the coldness of a hitman, but the tormented conflict of a trapped man. You know everything? He stammered. I nodded, tears now streaming down my cheeks. I heard it all. She wants me dead so her son can get a divorce. Butch, why you? How could you bring yourself to harm the person whose family once saved you? Butch bowed his head, his large hands clenched into fists so tight his knuckles turned white. I have no choice, he said, his voice laced with bitterness. I owe her a huge debt. If I do not do this, not only me, but my loved ones will be in danger. A debt? What do you owe her? I asked, surprised. She is a cold-blooded monster, a devil in disguise. You cannot work for her. You do not understand. Butch growled, then lowered his voice, which was now filled with helplessness. She saved my life once. In this underworld, a blood debt must be paid with blood. I cannot disobey her. I was stunned, so there was a complicated bond between them, but I could not give up. What about the debt you owe my family? The life my parents saved, is it not worth as much as your blood debt to her? Butch fell silent. My words had struck his weakest point. He stood there, this tall, powerful man who looked like a mountain, yet at this moment he seemed more fragile and broken than ever. He was caught between two debts, a life debt and a blood debt, an act of kindness and an act of violence. He had to choose, and his choice would determine my fate. I knew I could not force him. I could only hope that the flicker of conscience that remained, the humanity of the young Butch from long ago, would conquer the demon within him. Butch, I said, my voice gentle but firm, I am not forcing you to choose. I just want you to think carefully. If you harm me today, you might pay your debt to her, but you will incur another debt, a debt to your own conscience, and that debt will follow you for the rest of your life. With that, I let go of his arm. I did not beg or cry anymore. I turned and limped away, picking up the scattered oranges from the ground. I left him alone with his inner turmoil. I had done everything I could. The rest was up to fate. I took a few steps, my heart still in my throat. I did not dare to look back. I was afraid I would see his desperate eyes, or worse, the ruthlessness in them after he had made his final decision. Amy! His voice called out from behind me, making me stop. I slowly turned around. Butch was standing there. He had taken off his baseball cap. His dark hair was cut short, his face weathered but resolute. He looked at me, the conflict in his eyes gone, replaced by a firm decision. I will not hurt you, he said, each word spoken with conviction, but I cannot disobey Eleanor either. If I do not do it, she will just hire someone else, and then I will not be able to protect you. My heart, which had been weighed down by 1,000 pounds, was suddenly lifted, but his next words plunged me into a new worry. Then, what do we do? I asked, my voice filled with confusion. Butch glanced around, then came closer and whispered, There is only one way. You have to die. We will stage the accident, make it look completely real. You will disappear for a while, Only when she believes you are dead will she stop. And during that time, I will find a way to gather evidence to bring her down. I was shocked by his audacious plan. Faking my death was a huge gamble, but in this situation, it was the only way out. But how do we stage it? It will be so dangerous, trust me. Butch looked at me, his eyes full of confidence. I know how to do it. But I need help. Do you have anyone you can trust? Someone who can handle things after you have disappeared? Immediately, a name popped into my head. Marcus Thorne, my only close friend from college, a brilliant and sharp lawyer. I had not contacted him in the 3 years since I got married because I did not want to make Kevin jealous. But I knew that if I asked, he would definitely help me. Yes, I nodded. I have a friend. He is a lawyer. Excellent, Butch said. Tonight, 8 o'clock at the Grind coffee shop at the end of Z Street. You and your friend be there. We will discuss the details of the plan. Now go home, act normal, and do not let her suspect anything. Leave the rest to me. With that, Butch quickly got into his truck and drove off, disappearing into the heavy traffic. I stood there, watching his truck go, my mind in a turmoil. The gates of hell had just closed, but another door, full of uncertainty and danger, was creaking open. In this game of life and death, I was no longer a pawn. I was a player, and I had to win. Returning from the market, my heart was heavy, yet a flicker of hope had been ignited. Butch's plan was insane and risky, but it was my only path to survival. The first thing I had to do was contact Marcus. 3 years was not a long time, but it was enough to change many things. Would he still remember me? Would he be willing to put himself in danger to help me? I gathered my courage and dialed the number I still had saved deep in my contacts. The phone rang, each ring echoing for what felt like an eternity. My heart pounded. Hello? A familiar, warm male voice answered. It was him. Marcus, it is me, Amelia, I said, hesitating. The line was silent for a few seconds. I could hear him take a deep breath. Amy? Amelia, is that really you? My God, where have you been for the past 3 years? Do you have any idea how worried I was? Marcus's voice was a mix of surprise, reproach, and joy. I knew he was still my good friend. I am sorry, Marcus. It is a long, complicated story. Right now, I am in big trouble. I need your help. What kind of trouble? Did that husband of yours do something to you? I told you. I never trusted that guy's face. Where are you? I will be right there. Marcus's immediate support made me cry. At a time when the whole world had turned its back on me, there was still one person willing to stand by my side unconditionally. I choked back sobs and told him everything, the humiliation from my mother-in-law, my husband's weakness, Eleanor's cruel murder plot, and the fake death plan that Butch and I had just devised. Marcus listened in silence, not interrupting me. His silence made me a little anxious. Maybe my plan was too outlandish. He would probably think I was crazy. When I finished, Marcus remained silent for a long moment. Then he let out a heavy sigh. Amy, you have been through too much. I am sorry I was not there for you sooner. So, do you think this plan is feasible? I asked nervously. Feasible? Marcus replied, his voice now serious and sharp, the voice of a lawyer. It is insane, but in this situation, it is the only way to turn the tables. Eleanor is a cunning old fox. You cannot fight her with conventional methods. We have to make her believe you are dead. That is when she will let her guard down. And this Butch, he is our ace in the hole. Hearing Marcus's analysis gave me a sense of confidence. So tonight, 8 o'clock, at the Grind coffee shop on Z Street, will you come with me? We will meet Butch to work out the details. Of course. You stay put in that house. Do not go anywhere. I will pick you up at 7:30. Leave everything to me. The call ended, and I felt as if a huge weight had been lifted from my shoulders. With Marcus by my side, I no longer felt alone. We were not just two people. We were a team. That afternoon, I tried to maintain a calm demeanor, cleaning the house and cooking as usual. I did not want Eleanor to suspect a thing. She remained secluded in her room, completely unaware that the prey she was about to strike was setting another trap for her. At exactly 7:30, Marcus's car pulled up at the end of the street. I made an excuse about needing to buy something and quickly got in his car. Seeing Marcus after 3 years, he had changed a lot. He was more mature, more distinguished, but the way he looked at me was still as warm and caring as ever. "You are too thin." That was the first thing Marcus said to me. I just smiled sadly. "Let us go. We do not have much time." We arrived at The Grind, a small coffee shop tucked away in a quiet alley. Butch was already waiting in a secluded corner. He was wearing a black jacket and a baseball cap, still looking cold and unapproachable. When he saw us, he stood up and gave a slight nod. Marcus shook his hand, a firm handshake full of unspoken understanding between two men. "Hello, I am Marcus Thorne, Amelia's lawyer." Butch introduced himself simply. "Just call me Butch." We sat down, the atmosphere tense. Marcus got straight to the point. "Butch, I have heard everything from Amelia. Your plan is bold, but it is also full of risks. We need to plan every step meticulously." Butch nodded, his expression serious. "I know. That is why I need the help of a lawyer like you. I am good with my hands, but when it comes to legal paperwork, I am completely clueless." And so, the detailed planning began. Under the dim yellow light of the coffee shop, 3 people from 3 different worlds, a wife pushed to the brink, a grateful gangster, and a brilliant lawyer came together to craft a perfect script. "First, the scene of the crime," Butch said, his voice low and raspy. "Tomorrow at 9 o'clock sharp, Amy will go to the market as usual. I will be driving the truck, but I will not hit her head on. I will sideswipe the back of her motorcycle, sending her flying onto the road. I have prepared a bag of pig's blood. It will burst on impact and create a very realistic scene." "That is too dangerous," I said, worried. "What if you miscalculate?" "Do not worry, Amy," Butch said confidently. "I have been in this line of work for years. I know how to control the impact. You will only get a few scrapes. The important thing is that you have to act your part well. You have to scream, to look like you are in extreme pain. After the accident, someone will call an ambulance," Marcus continued. "This is the crucial part. We cannot let Amelia go to a public hospital. Her information would be leaked immediately. I have contacted a small private clinic where I have connections. Their ambulance will arrive at the scene first and take Amelia away under the pretext of emergency first aid." "But how will we get past the traffic police?" I asked. "Leave that to me," Butch said. "I have ways to hold them up for about 15 minutes. That will be enough time for the ambulance to get you away." "Once at the clinic," Marcus continued, "the doctor will announce that Amelia suffered a severe head trauma and did not survive. They will issue a death certificate. Of course, it will be fake, but it will be enough to deceive Eleanor for now. The body will be taken to the morgue, and this is where Butch has to act again." Butch nodded. "I will pretend to be a family member coming to claim the body. With Eleanor's connections, this will not be difficult. I will say I want to take you back to your hometown for burial, so as not to bother her family any further. I will bring an empty casket. As for you, Amy, after being smuggled out of the clinic through a service exit, my people will take you to a safe place." "Where?" I asked. "An old apartment building in the suburbs." Marcus replied, "I have already arranged it. It is discreet. No one will notice you. You will stay there for a while. You are not to contact anyone except me and Butch." The plan was laid out meticulously, without a single loophole. From creating the fake scene and evading the police, to forging the death certificate and hiding me away, everything was calculated perfectly. I sat and listened, both terrified and a little impressed. These 2 men, one with the cold logic of a lawyer, the other with the street smarts of a gangster when they worked together, they created an unbelievable plan. "As for Eleanor," Butch said, his eyes flashing with a sharp glint, "after you are dead, she will surely be gloating. And when people are at their happiest, they are also at their most careless. That is when we will make our move." "How?" "We will blackmail her," Marcus said with a mysterious smile. "We will pretend to be someone who knows the truth about the accident, someone who filmed her transaction with Butch. We will demand a large sum of money. She will definitely not call the police, and she will have to come to the meeting point alone. That meeting point will be her final judgment. Hearing this, I could not help but shudder. This plan was even more ruthless than I had imagined, but I had no other choice. Eleanor had pushed me to this. I was no longer the gentle Amelia of the past. I was a person fighting for my life, and in this fight, there was no room for mercy. The meeting ended, and we left. Before we parted, Butch looked at me and said one thing: "Amy, tomorrow, just trust me. I owe your family a life. This time, I will definitely repay it." His words moved me deeply. I knew I had not only a friend but also a brother by my side, ready to protect me. That night, I returned to the mansion, my heart no longer filled with fear, but with a cold determination. The deadly play was about to begin, and I was ready for the biggest role of my life. Would everything go as smoothly as planned? How would my husband, Kevin, react when he heard the news of my death? The dawn of the next day was unlike any other. The sunlight brought no warmth, only an unusual chill. I woke up not with fear, but with a frightening calmness. Like a soldier before battle, all emotions were suppressed, leaving only intense focus. I looked at myself in the mirror. The woman staring back had dark circles under her eyes from lack of sleep, but her gaze was bright and unusually determined. Today, I would die, and today, I would also be reborn. I went through my morning routine as if programmed, preparing breakfast, ironing Kevin's clothes. He came out with the same tired and distant expression. He had no idea this might be the last breakfast I would prepare for him. He had no idea that the wife he had grown to resent was about to disappear from his life forever. "Going to the market again today?" Kevin asked casually during breakfast. His question made my heart leap, but I quickly regained my composure. "Yes, we are out of groceries," I replied nonchalantly. "Okay, be careful," he said, then stood up, grabbed his briefcase, and left for work. No hug, no goodbye kiss. Our 3 years of marriage ended with such a cold, indifferent remark. I watched his retreating figure, a complex mix of emotions welling up inside me. There was pain, disappointment, but also a sense of liberation. At exactly 9 o'clock, I picked up my basket and wheeled my old motorcycle out of the gate. I was wearing simple clothes and a helmet. I took a deep breath, savoring the fresh morning air of the city one last time. Then I started the engine and drove towards Astoria Street, the road to hell, and also the road to my rebirth. I drove slowly, my heart pounding like a drum. I glanced in the rearview mirror and saw it. Butch's truck was silently following behind at a safe distance. Everything was going according to script. When I turned onto Astoria Street, a relatively quiet road at this time, I knew the moment had come. I gripped the handlebars tighter, sweat drenching my palms. Bam! A terrifying sound erupted from behind me. A powerful impact threw me and my motorcycle forward. I was flung onto the road, my head spinning, the world turning upside down. The motorcycle lay mangled a few feet away, its wheels still spinning. I lay on the hot asphalt, a sharp pain shooting from my shoulder and knee, but I could not pass out. I had to stay conscious. I had to act. "Ah, help, help me," I moaned, my voice weak. A warm, sticky, metallic-smelling liquid began to flow from under my back. It was the bag of pig's blood Butch had prepared. It had burst, creating a pool of dark red blood around me. The scene was horrifying. A few passers-by saw what happened and screamed in horror. They crowded around me. "Oh my God, an accident! Someone call an ambulance! That poor girl, she is bleeding so much!" The whispers and murmurs rose. Butch got out of his truck, his face a mask of panic and fear. He was a very convincing actor. He ran over to me, knelt down, his voice trembling. Ma'am, are you okay?" I did not mean to. The brakes failed. People looked at him with angry eyes. "Brakes failed? You were driving so fast." "Call an ambulance. What are you standing there for?" Everything was happening just as planned. Amidst the chaos, a private ambulance sped towards us, its siren wailing. 2 paramedics in white coats jumped out, carrying a stretcher. They were Marcus's people. Move aside! Move aside!" Let us do our work." They expertly parted the crowd, performed a quick assessment on me, and then carefully placed me on the stretcher. Multiple traumas, suspected head injury, significant blood loss. "We need to get her to the nearest hospital immediately," one of them announced loudly. Then they pushed me into the ambulance and slammed the doors shut. The ambulance wailed its siren again and sped away, leaving behind the accident scene and the shocked faces of the onlookers. Once the ambulance had driven a short distance and was out of sight, the paramedic sitting next to me immediately removed the neck brace and helped me sit up. "Amelia, are you all right?" he asked with concern. "I am fine. Just a few scrapes," I replied, sighing in relief. "Thank you. It is nothing, ma'am. We are just doing our job." Mr. Thorne gave us detailed instructions. The ambulance did not head towards a hospital. Instead, it turned into a small alley and stopped in front of an old warehouse. The doors opened, and Marcus and Butch were already waiting. "Amy, are you okay?" Marcus rushed over, looking me up and down with a worried expression. "I am fine," I reassured him. Butch also approached, his face still tense. "Is everything at the scene under control?" Marcus asked. "It is," Butch nodded. "The traffic police arrived, but I managed to delay them with a few tricks. They will not suspect anything. Now I have to go back and finish playing the part of the driver who caused the accident." "Be careful," I warned. Butch looked at me, gave a slight nod, and then turned to leave. "As for you, get inside and change," Marcus said, pointing to a set of clean clothes. "Then my person will take you to the safe house. Remember, from this moment on, Amelia Vance is dead. You have to live under a new identity. Do not show your face to anyone." I nodded. I followed a woman into the warehouse. When I came back out, I was a different person. My long hair was hidden under a baseball cap, and I was wearing baggy men's clothes. The woman led me out through a different exit to a waiting motorcycle. The motorcycle sped off into the night, taking me to a completely unfamiliar world. Meanwhile, at the private clinic arranged by Marcus, another act of the play was unfolding. The doctor informed the police that due to her severe injuries, Amelia Vance had not survived. A death certificate was issued. The news of my death was quickly relayed to the family. I could not imagine how Kevin and Eleanor would react to this news. Eleanor, she must be ecstatic. Her dream of getting rid of me had come true. And Kevin? Would he feel even a little bit of sorrow? Or would he also breathe a sigh of relief, glad to be free of a burden, pain, guilt, or the joy of freedom? What would his reaction be when faced with the death of the wife he had just abandoned? In the executive office of Vance Properties, Kevin Vance sat frozen in his high-end leather chair. The phone was still on the desk, though the call from the hospital had ended several minutes ago. "We regret to inform you, Mr. Vance, that the patient, Amelia Vance, your wife, did not survive her injuries following the accident." The doctor's words echoed in his head, cold and cruel. Dead. Amelia was dead. He could not believe it. Just this morning, she had been there, bustling in the kitchen, making him breakfast. Just this morning, she had looked at him with those sad, disappointed eyes. And now, she was gone. An overwhelming, terrifying emptiness enveloped Kevin. He did not cry. He just sat there, motionless, his gaze fixed on nothing. He did not know what he was feeling, grief, regret, or a numbness that bordered on paralysis. The office door burst open, and Eleanor rushed in. Her face was a mask of alarm, but deep in her eyes, a flicker of triumphant joy was unmistakable. "Kevin," I heard. "The girl? She really had an accident?" The poor thing. Why was her fate so tragic? She ran to Kevin's side, placing a hand on his shoulder, feigning comfort. But the tears rolling down her cheeks looked utterly fake. Kevin said nothing. He gently pushed his mother's hand away. He stood up and walked to the window, looking down at the bustling traffic below. He needed air. His chest felt constricted. "Mom, please do not say any more. I want to be alone." His voice was hoarse. Eleanor was taken aback by her son's coldness, but she quickly resumed her pained expression. "I know you are sad, son, My heart is breaking too. After all, she was my daughter-in-law. But do not let your grief affect your health. Leave the funeral arrangements to me. You are the pillar of this company. You cannot fall apart now." With that, she turned and left, the corner of her mouth twitching into a satisfied smirk. The plan had succeeded perfectly. The thorn in her side was finally gone. From now on, her son would be free. He could marry a woman of status who would help his career soar to new heights. The next day, a small funeral was held. As Butch, playing the part of Amelia's cousin from out of town, explained, the family back home wanted to bring her back for a traditional burial. Eleanor and Kevin, of course, did not object. They just wanted everything to be over as quickly as possible. Kevin stood before the empty casket, dressed in a black suit, his face emotionless. He did not shed a single tear. People whispered around him. Some said he was cold-hearted, that his wife had just died, and he showed no grief. Others thought he was simply too shocked to cry. Only Kevin knew that he could not cry because his heart was a chaotic mess of emotions. He felt guilty, tormented. He remembered his harsh words, his cowardly silence when his mother humiliated her. If he had not treated her that way, maybe she would not have died such a miserable death. But alongside the guilt, he also felt a sense of release. Yes, release. He no longer had to face her sad eyes every day. He no longer had to live torn between his mother and his wife. He was free. Amelia's death, though painful, had opened a new path for him, a future his mother had already planned out. After the funeral, Kevin's life seemed to return to normal. He went to work, attended social events. The only difference was that the mansion felt emptier, colder. There was no one waiting for him at night, no one to prepare hot meals. Sometimes, in the dead of night, he would instinctively call her name, "Amy, can you get me a glass of water?" Then he would startle, realizing she was no longer there. Eleanor, on the other hand, was openly cheerful. She began to redecorate the house, throwing out all of my belongings as if to erase any trace of my existence. She even started a campaign to find Kevin a new wife. "Kevin, dear, you know Tiffany Davenport, the daughter of the chairman of Davenport Real Estate? She is beautiful and brilliant. I have arranged a meeting for you this weekend. You should go see her." "Mom, my wife just passed away," Kevin said, annoyed. "So what if she just passed?" Eleanor waved his concern away. "The dead are dead. The living must go on. You cannot mope around forever. You have to think about your career, your future. Tiffany will be a strong partner for you." Under his mother's pressure, Kevin eventually went to the meeting. He had no feelings for the girl, but he did not protest. He let his mother arrange everything, like a puppet on a string. His life drifted on in a haze of emptiness and guilt. Until one night, as he sat alone in his study, trying to bury himself in work to forget everything, he saw something small and shiny under his desk. He bent down and picked it up. It was a small button, shaped like a tiny white daisy. He recognized it immediately. It was from the pajamas Amelia loved to wear. It must have fallen off without her noticing. He clutched the button in his palm. A memory flooded back. It was a late evening. He was working late. Amelia had brought him a glass of warm milk. She was wearing those pajamas with the little daisy buttons. She smiled, a gentle, warm smile. "You have been working so hard. Drink some milk to warm up," he remembered snapping at her. "You are so annoying." "I am busy. Do not bother me." She had quietly placed the milk on the desk and left. Her back looked so lonely then. Thinking back now, he realized how cruel he had been. He opened a desk drawer, intending to put the button away, but he froze. In the drawer, next to a stack of documents, was a small wooden box. Curious, he opened it. Inside were a journal and a positive pregnancy test. 2 lines. Kevin was stunned. A positive pregnancy test meant Amelia had been pregnant. He shakily picked up the journal. It was her diary. He never knew she kept one. He flipped through the pages, her neat handwriting appearing before him. Date. "I found out I am pregnant today. I am so happy. I do not know how to tell Kevin. He is so busy with work. Will he be happy to hear the news?" Date. I still have not told Kevin. My mother-in-law does not seem to like me. If she finds out I am pregnant, will she accept this baby? Date. I have decided to keep this a secret for a while. I will wait until Kevin's work is more stable, then I will tell him, "My baby, please grow up strong and healthy. Mommy will protect you." As Kevin read, his hands began to tremble violently. He was a father. He had a child, but he never knew. And now, both his wife and his child were gone. An overwhelming pain and regret seized his heart. What had he done? He had indirectly killed his wife and his unborn child. He buried his face in his hands. For the first time since Amelia's death, he wept. Gut-wrenching, belated sobs filled with bitter regret. But he had no idea that somewhere else, the wife he thought was dead was silently watching it all. His tragic performance had only just begun, and the price he and his mother would have to pay would be far greater. Would the truth about the baby awaken Kevin, or would it only push him deeper into a mire of lies and guilt? In the old suburban apartment, I sat in front of my laptop, watching Kevin's every move through the microcamera I had long ago hidden in his study. I saw him break down, saw the belated anguish and regret on his face, but my heart remained unmoved. What good were his tears now? Could they bring my child back to life? Could they erase the wounds he and his mother had inflicted upon me? No. It was all too late. "He looks pretty pathetic, crying like that," Marcus said, sitting beside me and taking a sip of coffee, his tone dripping with sarcasm. "Just the type, a weak man who only learns to appreciate what he has after he has lost it." I closed the laptop. "Let us not talk about him anymore. How is our plan coming along?" "Everything is ready," Marcus said, putting down his coffee cup, his expression turning serious. "Butch has gathered enough information on Eleanor's shady dealings, and I have drafted the first blackmail letter. The bait is set. We just need to wait for the big fish to bite." The next day, an unmarked envelope was secretly placed at the doorstep of Eleanor Vance's mansion. Inside was a memory card and a handwritten note with scrawled words, "Watch this and you will know. If you want to live in peace, do not call the police." Curious, Eleanor inserted the memory card into her computer. The screen lit up with a short, shaky, blurry video filmed from a distance. It was a video of her meeting Butch at a deserted cafe, handing him a thick stack of cash. The audio was unclear, but the images were undeniable. Eleanor's face turned pale. She trembled as she pulled out the memory card, her heart pounding. Who filmed this? Could that lowlife Butch have betrayed her, or was there a third party watching her? A storm of questions raged in her mind. Just then, her phone pinged with a new text message. It was from an unknown number. "I know what you did. Your daughter-in-law's accident wasn't an accident. I have all the proof. If you don't want everything exposed, your son's reputation ruined, and you rotting in prison, prepare $500,000. Tomorrow night, 10 o'clock sharp, bring the money alone to the old meatpacking plant in the suburbs. Remember, alone. If I see any cops, this video will be on every news channel tomorrow morning." Eleanor read the message, her body shaking with a mix of fury and fear. $500,000 was not a small sum, but compared to her family's honor and her son's future, it was nothing. Who was this person, daring to blackmail her? She gritted her teeth, 100 schemes forming in her mind. Call the police? No, too risky. The blackmailer had been clear. Involve the police, and the video gets released. Hire thugs to handle it? Also not a good idea. What if they turned around and blackmailed her too? That would be even more trouble. In the end, she decided to handle it herself. Who was she? She was Eleanor Vance, a woman who had navigated the cutthroat business world for decades. There was nothing she could not handle. She figured this blackmailer was probably just some small-time crook who thought he could intimidate her because she was a woman. She would go to the meeting point, but not to deliver the money. She would teach that person a lesson. The next evening, Eleanor withdrew a large amount of cash from the bank, but she only took $100,000 in real currency. For the other $400,000, she used stacks of counterfeit bills with a thin layer of real money on top. She packed it all into a black briefcase. She also hid a small dagger and a can of pepper spray in her handbag. She was ready for a confrontation. She drove alone to the old meatpacking plant in the suburbs, following the address in the text message. The dirt road was bumpy, flanked by desolate, empty fields. The car's headlights cut through the misty night, creating a ghostly atmosphere. The old plant loomed before her like a giant beast sleeping in the darkness. The stained brick walls, the rusted tin roof, and the faint, foul smell of blood and decay in the air made her shudder, but her pride and confidence overrode her fear. She grabbed the briefcase, got out of the car, and walked straight inside. The heavy iron door creaked ominously before slamming shut behind her. It was pitch black inside, with only a few weak rays of moonlight filtering through holes in the roof. Eleanor turned on her phone's flashlight and scanned the area. Iron hooks hung silently from the ceiling, cold stone butchering tables stood like altars, and the floor was covered in dark puddles of what could have been rainwater or old blood. The damp, cold, and pungent air made her feel nauseous. "Is anyone here?" she called out, her voice trying to sound firm. "I have the money. Come and get it." The only reply was silence and the echo of her own voice. She started to feel uneasy. Could this be a trap? She backed away, intending to leave, but the iron door was locked from the outside. Panicked, she pounded on the door. "Open up! Which one of you bastards is playing this game with me? Open the door!" But it was useless. The door did not budge. Just then, a chilling, maniacal laugh echoed from a dark corner of the plant. "Heh heh heh, so you came? You have got guts!" Eleanor jumped, startled. She whirled around, pointing her flashlight towards the sound. A figure slowly emerged. He was tall and powerfully built, wearing a leather apron stained with dark red and black splotches. In his hand, he held a meat cleaver, the kind used for butchering pigs, gleaming under the flashlight beam. His face was half hidden in shadow, but his smile was unmistakable. A wicked, depraved smile full of death. This was not some small-time blackmailer. This was a butcher. A real butcher. Eleanor froze, her body trembling with fear. The dagger and pepper spray she had prepared now seemed laughably small and useless against the gleaming cleaver and the man's imposing figure. Who are you?" she stammered. The butcher did not answer. He licked his lips, raising the cleaver to his face, admiring its sharp edge. "Your skin looks pretty soft," he said, his voice a horrifying rasp. "Probably easier to cut through than a pig's hide." Eleanor let out a terrified scream and stumbled backward until her back hit a cold wall. She had walked right into a trap, a perfect trap. And tonight, she was not the hunter. She was the prey. How would this powerful woman face the horrific torture awaiting her? And elsewhere, was her son, Kevin, living in peace, or were the horrifying secrets of his wife's death slowly being revealed to him? Eleanor felt a deathly chill creep up her spine. The musty, metallic scent of the slaughterhouse, the cloying smell of old blood, filled her nostrils, making her want to gag. But the terror was far worse than any physical revulsion. The man before her was no blackmailer. He was a demon summoned from the depths of hell. His eyes, shadowed beneath the brim of his cap, glowed with a feral madness. His grin stretched wide, revealing yellowed teeth and a single, sharp canine. He was not looking at the briefcase full of money she clutched to her chest. He was looking at her, a scrutinizing, appraising gaze, like a butcher sizing up a fat pig before the slaughter. "The money? It is here," Eleanor stammered, pushing the briefcase forward, her voice a frightened squeak. "It is all there, 500,000. Take it and let me go." The butcher chuckled, a guttural, horrifying sound that echoed in the cavernous space. "Money? I do not need money. I need something else." He advanced slowly, the cleaver in his hand, scraping lightly across a stone table, creating a high-pitched, grating sound that made Eleanor's skin crawl. She screamed and scrambled backward, her back pressed against the cold brick wall. What do you want? Stay away from me. What do I want?" The butcher paused, tilting his head in mock contemplation. "Let's see. Your flesh is probably soft and fatty, right? Tastes better than pork, I bet. Your bones, I can grind those up for fish food. And your skin would make a lovely little lampshade." Every word he spoke was a hammer blow against Eleanor's already frayed nerves. She had never experienced terror like this. She was a woman of power, accustomed to giving orders, accustomed to solving problems with money. But in front of this madman, her money and power were meaningless. You are insane," she shrieked in desperation. "Do you know who I am? If you dare to touch a single hair on my head, my son will never let you get away with this." "Your son?" The butcher laughed again. "That weak-willed pretty boy? He could not even protect his own wife. How is he going to protect you?" "Oh, and speaking of his wife," he took another step forward. The cleaver now pointed directly at Eleanor's face. "You hired someone to kill her, didn't you? Did you think you could get away with it?" Eleanor froze. He knew? How could he know? Could he be one of Butch's men? Or was he Butch himself? No, that was impossible. Butch was just a small-time thug. He would never have the guts to confront her like this. What are you talking about? I do not understand." She tried to deny it, but her trembling voice betrayed her. "You do not understand?" The butcher pressed the cleaver against her throat. The cold steel on her skin made her shudder violently. "Then let me help you remember. The truck, the accident, your pitiful daughter-in-law. How much did you pay for her life? 100,000? 200? Or do you think a human life is that cheap?" Eleanor could not speak. Fear had seized her throat. She realized the man before her was no ordinary blackmailer. He knew everything. He was not here for money. He was here to collect a debt, a blood debt. Meanwhile, elsewhere, Kevin Vance was drowning himself in alcohol. Ever since finding Amelia's journal and the positive pregnancy test, he had been living in a torment of guilt and self-loathing. He did not dare tell his mother the truth. He was afraid to face her wrath, afraid to admit that his own cowardice had indirectly killed his wife and child. He turned to alcohol to forget. He drank until he was numb, until his mind was a fog. But the more he drank, the more vividly Amelia's image appeared in his mind. Her gentle smile, her sad eyes, the words in her journal. They burrowed into his soul, torturing him without a moment's peace. "Kevin, let's go home. You've had too much," a friend advised, patting his shoulder. Kevin swatted his hand away and drained his glass. "Leave me alone. I want to drink. I am a monster. My wife is dead. My child is dead. It is all my fault." He yelled, then slumped onto the table, sobbing like a child. His friends looked on with concern, not understanding what was happening, assuming he was simply overcome with grief. Drunk, Kevin stumbled to his car and drove home. He was in no state to recognize the danger. The luxury car swerved on the road, nearly causing several accidents. When he reached the cold, empty mansion, he collapsed onto the familiar sofa where Amelia had sat huddled on that fateful night. He closed his eyes, trying to escape reality and sleep. But then, a familiar scent in the air startled him. It was his mother's perfume. But something was strange. The scent was very strong, as if she had just come home. "What time is it?" Kevin groggily looked at his watch. Nearly 11 o'clock. Where would his mother be at this hour? A vague suspicion crept into his drunken mind. He remembered his mother's odd behavior on the day Amelia died. She had pretended to be distraught, but he had not seen a single tear. She had rushed the funeral arrangements, hastily getting rid of Amelia's things, as if trying to erase her existence. And she had relentlessly pushed him to meet other women. What kind of mother would do that when her daughter-in-law had just passed away? The more Kevin thought about it, the more he felt something was wrong. He stood up and staggered upstairs, intending to ask his mother, but her room was empty. He searched the entire house but could not find her. Her car was still in the garage, so how did she leave? Kevin returned to the living room, his mind clearing slightly. He looked around, and his eyes fell on the small wastebasket in the corner. Inside was a white envelope, torn in half. Curious, Kevin picked it up and pieced it together. It was a blank envelope, nothing special. But when he turned it over, he saw the faint indentations of writing. Someone must have written on another piece of paper on top of it. Kevin squinted, trying to make out the faint marks. Old meatpacking plant. Suburbs. The old meatpacking plant. What was his mother doing there in the middle of the night? A sense of unease washed over him. He quickly grabbed his phone to call her, but then he paused. He saw an unread text message from an unknown number. It had been sent hours ago, but he had been too drunk to notice. He opened it. "If you want to know the truth about your wife's death and save your mother, come to the old meatpacking plant in the suburbs. But remember, don't call the police. You're not so innocent yourself. You ungrateful son." Kevin felt as if he had been struck by lightning. The truth about Amelia's death? Save his mother? And why did this person say he was not innocent? A whirlwind of questions consumed him. There was no time to think. Kevin bolted out of the house, got in his car, and sped towards the suburbs. He did not know what awaited him there. He only knew he had to go. He had to find the truth, no matter how brutal it was. When he arrives, what horrifying scene will Kevin face? Will he be in time to save his mother from the deranged butcher, or is it all just a prearranged play waiting for him? Eleanor had never felt so close to death. The cold blade of the meat cleaver was still pressed against her neck. A single move from the butcher, and it would slice her throat open. The smell of blood and the man's sour sweat assaulted her senses, making her gag. All the pride and power she had built over a lifetime crumbled into dust before this raw, primal brutality. She was just a weak, terrified woman, trembling as she awaited judgment. "Talk," the butcher growled, his breath hot on her face. "How did you kill her? How much did you pay, Butch?" I do not know. I do not know anything," Eleanor stammered, tears and snot streaming down her face. She was still trying to deny it, a final, feeble act of defiance. "You do not know?" the butcher sneered. He pulled the cleaver away. Eleanor let out an involuntary sigh of relief, thinking she was safe. But no. Hell was just beginning. He was not going to kill her quickly. He was going to play with his prey. He wanted her to taste ultimate fear, a mental torture far worse than physical death. He turned and walked to a stone butchering table. He set the cleaver down and picked up a sharpening steel. Scrape, scrape, scrape. The rhythmic, ear-splitting sound of metal against metal echoed in the silent plant. He sharpened the blade while muttering to himself, loud enough for Eleanor to hear. "Got to get it real sharp, a nice clean edge. That way, the cut is smooth, no tearing. Makes the meat taste better." Eleanor scrambled to her feet and pressed herself against the wall, covering her ears, trying to block out his horrifying words. But the sound of the sharpening steel burrowed into her mind. She looked around frantically for an escape, but every door was locked. She was trapped with a demon. The butcher finished sharpening his cleaver. He held it up, admiring it in the faint moonlight. He seemed pleased. Then he walked to a dark corner and dragged something out. It was the skinned carcass of an animal, probably a pig. He threw it onto the table. Thump! The heavy sound made Eleanor jump. He began his work, wielding the cleaver with brutal, expert efficiency. He started trimming the meat, chopping the bones. The sound of the cleaver hacking into bone, thwack, thwack, and the sound of flesh being sliced, schlick, schlick, filled the air. Blood dripped from the carcass, pooling on the stone table before trickling to the floor. Drip, drip, drip. Eleanor squeezed her eyes shut, her hands clamped over her ears, but the sounds, the overwhelming stench of blood, invaded her senses. She felt nauseous, dizzy. It felt as if the butcher was not carving a pig, but carving her. He continued to talk to her as he worked, as if they were old friends. "You know, in my line of work, the most important thing is to be decisive. One clean cut. You drag it out, the animal suffers, and the meat gets tough." He paused, turning to look at her, his smile even more demonic. "Just like you. You were very decisive with your daughter-in-law. One hit from a truck, and it was over. Neat, clean. I have to say, I admire that about you." "Shut up! Just shut up!" Eleanor screamed, on the verge of a complete breakdown. Her spirit was broken. "I will give you money. Lots of money. Whatever you want. Just let me go." "Money?" The butcher laughed again. I told you, I do not need money. What I need is your confession. Tell me. How did you plan to kill her? Tell me every detail. If you tell a good story, maybe I will give you a quick death." He went back to his work. This time he picked up a handsaw and began sawing through the larger bones. The grating sound of the saw against bone was even more horrifying than the chopping. Eleanor could not take it anymore. She crawled on the floor to the butcher's feet. "Please, I am begging you. I am on my knees. Spare me. I was wrong. I know I was wrong." "Wrong?" He stopped, looking down at her with an amused expression. "How were you wrong, tell me?" I should not have treated her so badly. I should not have forced her to get a divorce," she stammered. "Is that all?" He frowned, pretending to be disappointed. "What about the part where you tried to have her murdered? Are you just going to leave that out?" He held the bloody saw in front of her face. "Maybe I need to saw off your tongue to get you to tell the truth." "No, no. I will talk. I will tell you everything." Eleanor, in a state of pure terror, confessed everything. She recounted how she had called Butch, how much she had offered, how she had laid out the entire plan. She told him everything through tears and violent shudders. She was completely broken, with none of her former pride or power remaining. The butcher listened, nodding with satisfaction. When she finished, he stood up and tossed the saw aside. He walked to a large barrel of water and began washing the blood from his hands. "Good. You are an honest woman after all," he said, his voice less manic now. "So, what should I do with you now? Chop you into 100 pieces? Or maybe lock you in here with the rats and let them nibble on you?" Eleanor lay sprawled on the floor, too exhausted to beg any more. She just wept, her sobs filled with despair. She knew she was not getting out of this place alive. Meanwhile, Kevin's car was flying down the deserted highway. He kept calling his mother's phone, but it went straight to voicemail. He tried the unknown number that had texted him, but there was no answer. A sense of dread and fear grew inside him. He did not know where he was going or what he would face. He was just following the GPS coordinates the stranger had sent, a location deep in the remote suburbs. He remembered the words of the text, "The truth about your wife's death. You are not so innocent yourself." The words haunted him, making his head spin. Could there be more to Amelia's death? Was his mother involved? And why did the message say he was not innocent? What had he done wrong? Besides treating Amelia horribly, staying silent while she was humiliated, was that a crime? The car finally arrived at the location. Kevin stopped in front of a derelict building that looked like an old slaughterhouse. His heart pounded. He got out of the car, the cold air and foul stench hitting him immediately. He saw a large iron door, bolted shut. "Mom, are you in there?" he yelled. There was no answer, only the sound of the wind whistling through the gaps in the tin roof like a ghostly whisper. Kevin summoned his courage. He ran at the door, but it was too solid. He looked around and found a long iron bar. He used it as a lever, and, after a struggle, the rusty lock broke. The door creaked open. A wave of cold air and an even stronger smell of blood washed over him, making him gag. He turned on his phone's flashlight and tiptoed inside. The sight that met his eyes was one he would never forget for the rest of his life. Would Kevin be able to handle the horrifying shock of seeing his mother's true face and the truth about his wife's death? When Kevin stepped through the rusted iron door, his world stopped. The weak flashlight beam from his phone cut a trembling path through the damp, filthy interior of the slaughterhouse. But that path was enough to illuminate a scene that would haunt him for the rest of his life. His mother, Eleanor, the woman who always appeared so elegant and powerful, was now a crumpled, pathetic figure in a dirty corner. Her expensive silk dress was torn and stained with mud and filth. Her perfectly coiffed hair was a tangled mess, clinging to a face streaked with tears and terror. Her eyes were wide, vacant, and soulless, staring into nothingness like a person who had lost their mind. She was no longer a queen, she was a beggar, a cornered animal that had completely broken. "Mom," Kevin whispered, his voice cracking. He started to rush towards her, but froze. In the center of the room, standing in the single beam of light, was a man. The butcher. Or rather, Butch. He was no longer wearing the bloody leather apron. He was dressed in clean, dark clothes. He held no weapon, and the maniacal grin was gone. He just stood there, arms crossed, his face cold and calm. His calmness was more terrifying than his previous madness. What did you do to my mother?" Kevin roared, his initial fear replaced by the rage of a son seeing his mother humiliated. He charged at Butch, his fist raised. Butch did not even flinch. He simply tilted his head and raised a hand, effortlessly blocking Kevin's punch. Butch's hand was like a steel vice, clamping down on Kevin's wrist, sending a jolt of pain through his arm. "Calm down, pretty boy," Butch said, his voice flat and emotionless. "I have not done anything to her. At least, not physically. You should be thanking me for not turning her into what she planned to do to your wife." "My wife?" Kevin froze. "What are you talking about? You still do not get it?" Butch smirked, a look of pure contempt on his face. He gestured towards Eleanor. "Ask your mother. Ask her if your wife's accident was really an accident. Ask her how much she paid me to take her life." Kevin turned to look at his mother. At the mention of these words, Eleanor flinched and began shaking her head violently, like a madwoman. "No, it is not true. He is lying, Kevin. He is framing me. Do not believe him." But her panicked eyes and shrill voice gave her away. Kevin was not a fool. He connected the dots. His mother's strange behavior, Amelia's journal, and now, this man's words. A horrifying truth, one he had never dared to imagine, was slowly taking shape. He let his arm fall to his side and staggered back. "Mom, is it true?" he asked, his voice trembling, pleading, hoping it was all a mistake. "Is it true that you killed her?" Eleanor did not answer. She just buried her face in her hands and sobbed. Her silence was the most damning confession. Kevin's world shattered. The mother he had always respected, the woman whose every word he had obeyed, was a murderer. And the victim was none other than his wife, the mother of his unborn child. Why? Why would you do it? Kevin screamed, his cry echoing in the slaughterhouse, a sound of pure agony and despair. What did she ever do wrong? How could you be so heartless? For you! Eleanor lifted her head and screamed back, her voice raw. I did it all for you. That girl was not good enough for you. She was a burden, an obstacle to your career. I was only trying to do what was best for you. Best for me? Kevin laughed, a wild, tear-filled laugh. You murdered my wife, you murdered your own grandchild, and you call that what is best for me. You are not my mother. You are a monster. He spun around, lost in a storm of pain and brutal reality. He did not know what to do, who to believe. He looked at his mother with hatred, then back at Butch with suspicion. And you? Who are you? Why do you know all this? Why are you helping me? Butch looked at him with a flicker of pity. Who I am does not matter. What matters is that someone wanted you to know the truth. Someone wanted you to see the true face of the mother you have always worshipped. Who? Who told you? Kevin demanded. Just then, from the deepest shadows of the slaughterhouse, a figure slowly emerged. The moonlight streaming through a hole in the roof cast a faint, ethereal glow around her. She was wearing a simple white dress, her long hair falling over her shoulders. Her face was beautiful and serene, but her eyes were cold and distant. It was me. The clear, familiar voice rang out. Kevin froze, his entire body rigid. He rubbed his eyes, unable to believe what he was seeing. He thought he was dreaming, or that he was dead and in hell. Amy, Amelia, he stammered, his voice like that of a sleepwalker. No, it cannot be. You are dead. The person standing before him was Amelia, in the flesh. She was not dead. She had returned from the grave to judge them all. That is right, Amelia said with a sad smile. The Amelia you knew, your meek, submissive wife, is dead. She died in the accident your mother arranged. The person standing before you now is someone else, someone who has come back to claim justice. Kevin staggered, his mind reeling. Amelia was alive. His wife was alive. A wave of insane joy washed over him, followed immediately by an even greater fear. If she was alive, then what was all this? The accident, the death, this entire scene in the slaughterhouse. Could it all have been orchestrated by her? You tricked me, Kevin said, his eyes filled with confusion. Why would you do this? Tricked you? Amelia gave a small, bitter laugh. Compared to your mother hiring someone to kill me, this little deception of mine is nothing. I did this to show you, Kevin, to show you the true face of the mother you always defended. To show you how your silence and your cowardice nearly killed me. And our child. The words our child were like another knife in Kevin's heart. He collapsed to his knees on the cold, filthy floor. He could no longer meet Amelia's gaze. He understood everything. He was not a victim. He was one of the perpetrators who had pushed her to this. I am sorry, he sobbed. Amy, I am so sorry. I know I was wrong. Please forgive me. Can we start over? I promise. I will never let you suffer again. I will protect you. I will make it up to you and the baby. The baby? I laughed bitterly. You dare to speak of our child? When your mother was planning to kill me, to kill your child, where were you? When I was humiliated, when I was mistreated, what did you do? You were silent, Kevin. Your silence was the sharpest knife of all. It killed my love. It killed my trust in you. I know I am a coward, Kevin said, slamming his fist on the ground. But I love you, Amy. I really do. I was blinded by ambition, controlled by my mother. Please, give me a chance to make it right. I will do anything. Just come back to me. He looked at me, his eyes filled with hope, but I just shook my head. Kevin, there is no going back for us. What is broken cannot be perfectly mended. You can glue the pieces back together, but the cracks will always be there, a constant reminder of the past. I gently removed his hand from my leg. Get up and live a better life. That is the best you can do now. Consider this an expensive lesson. Do not let weakness and ambition ruin your life again. With that, I turned and walked away. I did not look back. I knew if I saw the desperation in his eyes, I might soften, and I would not allow myself to be weak ever again. I walked out of the slaughterhouse and took a deep breath of the fresh night air. The sky was full of stars, vast and brilliant. A new future, a new life, was waiting for me. I was no longer Amelia Vance, wife of Kevin Vance. I was just Amelia. Free, strong, and independent. The night of terror had passed, but would the dawn truly come for everyone? Would Kevin truly change, or would he sink into another swamp of deceit? And on my future path, what new thorns awaited? The police car's siren faded into the distance, bringing an end to the night's horrific drama. Eleanor's arrest sealed the final chapter of her reign of terror. Her last, desperate screams echoed in Kevin's mind, a haunting testament to the complete and utter ruin of the woman he once called mother. As the iron door of the slaughterhouse clanged shut behind the officers, a heavy, suffocating silence descended, leaving only me, Kevin, and Marcus in the cold, blood-scented air. Kevin remained on his knees, a broken man, his head bowed in shame. Marcus came to my side, placing a gentle, reassuring hand on my shoulder. "It is over, Amy. You did it." I nodded, my gaze shifting to Kevin. There was no triumph in my heart, only a profound weariness. The battle was won, but the scars remained. Marcus, understanding the need for a private moment, gave my shoulder a final squeeze. "I will wait for you outside," he said softly, before stepping out into the night, leaving us alone with the ghosts of our shattered marriage. Kevin finally looked up, his eyes red and swollen. "Amy," he began, his voice choked, unable to form the words. I looked at him, the man I had once loved with every fiber of my being. His handsome face was now a mask of anguish, guilt, and profound regret. I knew he was a victim in his own way, a victim of his own weakness, his own ambition, but that pity was not enough to erase the wounds. "Get up, Kevin," I said, my voice steady. "It is over." "Not yet," he shook his head, crawling forward to clutch at my legs. "It is not over. Amy, I was wrong. I truly know I was wrong. Please, I am begging you, forgive me. Can we start over? I swear I will never let you suffer again. I will protect you. I will make it up to you and our child. Our child? I let out a bitter laugh. You dare mention our child now? When your mother plotted to kill me, to kill your child, where were you? When I was humiliated and abused, what did you do? You were silent, Kevin. Your silence was the deadliest weapon. It murdered my love. It murdered my trust. I know I am a coward, Kevin sobbed, pounding the filthy floor. But I love you, Amy. I swear I do. I was blinded by ambition, manipulated by my mother. Please, just give me one more chance. A chance to fix everything. He looked up at me, his eyes pleading, but I simply shook my head. Kevin, there is no going back for us. A broken mirror can never be made whole again. You can glue the pieces together, but the cracks will always be there, a constant reminder of the pain. I gently pried his fingers from my leg. Stand up and live a better life. That is the best you can do now. Consider this a painful lesson. Do not let your weakness and ambition destroy you again. With that, I turned and walked away. I did not look back. I knew if I saw the desperation in his eyes, my resolve might waver, and I refused to be weak again. I stepped out of the slaughterhouse, inhaling the clean night air. The sky was a vast canvas of glittering stars. A new future, a new life, was waiting for me. The horrifying night was over. Now it was time for my dawn. Time passed. A year, then 2. Eleanor was sentenced to life in prison. Without her guidance and after the scandal, Kevin's company went bankrupt. He lost everything and had to start from scratch. As for me, with Marcus's help, I opened a small bookstore cafe, fulfilling a lifelong dream. The cafe, a peaceful corner in the bustling city, became a quiet success. I found joy in my work, in my independence. I had become a better version of myself, strong and confident. One rainy afternoon, Kevin came to the cafe. He looked thinner, older, the polished executive long gone. He sat quietly in a corner, ordered a black coffee, and just watched me work. He did not come to plead or to reminisce. He came just to see, to assure himself that I was okay. We became friends, in a strange, distant way. We did not meet often, just an occasional text to check in. The love was gone, the hatred had faded, and all that remained was the quiet calm between two people who had survived a storm together. 3 years later, I saw him at Marcus's wedding. "You look beautiful today, Amy," he said with a gentle smile. I smiled back, a genuine smile. "Thank you, Kevin. You look better too." We stood by the ocean, watching the sunset paint the sky in fiery colors. "Amy," he began hesitantly, "I know I have no right, but I have to ask, can we try to be friends?" I looked into his eyes. The pleading was gone, replaced by a quiet sincerity. I had learned to forgive, not for his sake, but for my own. "Okay," I said, "we can be friends." A radiant smile lit up his face. I knew it was not the beginning of a new romance, but the perfect, peaceful end to a painful past. My story might not be a fairy tale, but after everything, I found my own peace, my own happiness, a happiness built with my own 2 hands and my own strength. And that, in the end, was the most beautiful ending of all. My story, having reached its conclusion, perhaps leaves behind echoes in the minds of all who have listened. We have journeyed through a full spectrum of emotions, from outrage at Eleanor's cruelty and disappointment in Kevin's weakness, to a sense of satisfaction when justice was served, and finally, a quiet peace as I found myself again. But after all the drama, what truly remains is the lesson of forgiveness. Not forgiveness for others, but forgiveness for one's own past. Hatred is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die. It consumes the soul and traps us in a prison of pain. I chose to let go, not because Kevin deserved forgiveness, but because I deserved peace. The moment I agreed to be his friend was not about rekindling a flame, but a declaration that the past no longer had the power to hurt me. That was the greatest victory. The story is also a profound reminder of inner strength and self-worth, especially for women. I once made myself a shadow, living for my husband and his family, forgetting who I was. That painful collapse was my chance to be reborn. True happiness comes not from leaning on another, but from standing firmly on one's own feet. My bookstore cafe is not just a business, it is a symbol of independence, of a soul that has found itself after the storm. And of course, there is the law of cause and effect. Eleanor, with her power and money, thought she could manipulate fate without consequence. But her own cruelty led her to a cold prison cell. Kevin, with his weakness, chose silence in the face of evil, and the price was losing everything. Life is always fair in its own way. The seeds you sow, you will eventually reap. Finally, there is the lesson of choice. In my darkest hour, I could have chosen to collapse, to surrender, but I chose to fight. That choice not only saved my life, but brought justice and opened up a new future. Life is a series of choices. No matter how harsh the circumstances, the power to choose our response always lies within us. Always choose strength, choose kindness, and choose the path toward the light. Truthfully, the character who gave me the most pause was not myself or Eleanor, but Kevin. He represents a common and frightening kind of evil, the evil of weakness. Eleanor's wickedness was clear. It is easy to hate her. But Kevin's silence, his turning a blind eye to my pain, was the fatal blow. His love was not strong enough to overcome his cowardice. Forgiveness, in the end, was not about giving him another chance, but about freeing myself. The scene in the slaughterhouse was symbolic. It was a place to expose Eleanor's true butcher-like nature, a place to bury all pretense, and a place for truth to be resurrected. I wanted my story to be not just about revenge, but about healing, a comfort to anyone who has experienced heartbreak that after the rain, the sun will always shine again.